post that you see right there today. And it has Mamandaura 6 competence over zoning as the caption. All right, so go under it and let's hear your thoughts on any of the stories listed up there. Just make sure you make reference to it so we know what you're talking about when we get to reading it at the top of the hour 11. So moving on, the very first story on our newspaper review this morning as I welcome Emmanuel Undukwe. Good to have you, Emmanuel.
Good morning, Annie. Good morning, Nigeria.
I guess much later, privately, you tell me the efforts you had to, engage. Did you
that particular person?
Yes, did you swim through 7 seas and climb 7 mountains? But you must share with me what you did. So the very first story here, we have Mamandaura 6 competence over zoning, and you have here part of the story reputed to be head of the kitchen cabinet of the President Muhammadu Buhari administration, the president's nephew, Malam Mamandaura, yesterday spoke on the vexed issue of zoning and rotation of the nation's presidency, arguing that competence, not geography, should determine the next president of Nigeria in 2023. This turn by turn, it was done once, it was done twice, it was done thrice. It is better for the country to be one. It should be for the most competent and not for someone who comes from somewhere. This he said to the BBC Hausa service in an interview. Dismissing the clamor for power shift, he said it was time for the country to unite and go for the most competent person to lead the nation. According to him, since Nigerians have tried the rotational presidency about thrice already, it will be better to go for the most qualified candidate in 2023, irrespective of whether he comes from the north or the south. This, he said, will be better for the nation's unity. He also spoke about his relationship with his uncle, saying contrary to the dominant view in the public domain, he could not possibly dictate public policy to the president. And he said, and he's quoted, "Yes, I do visit to greet him. I do give him advice. But if he asked, I advise him. But I don't go there on my own and insist I must do this or that. No, you don't do that to the government." End of quote, he said. In any which case, we're focusing on the fact that he says this turn by turn is not working. We've done it once, we've done it twice. In fact, we've done it thrice. It's better for the country to be one. It should be for the most competent and not for someone who comes from somewhere. Emmanuel.
Unfortunately, he didn't elaborate for us to understand because this turn by turn, according to him, they've done it once, maybe twice. Zoning. I understand very well. Mm-hmm. But then, he should have told us why, perhaps now he's kicking against zoning. Since I want to believe he was in Nigeria when it was done thrice, according to him. But now he suddenly knows that it's not working. Then what were the flaws of it not to work as at the time it didn't? But what I know is that when he's talking about, what I feel he is talking about is competence. And of course, maybe somebody who just because of our zone is produced who like that competence. Now, if that be the case, I want to believe that in all the 6 political zones of this country, there are competent individuals. But the question will be, are they in the mainstream political parties? Because that will be the determinant. You can't just come out from the blues and then they field you and you win. Now, what are the efforts of those in that particular zone to make sure that they build bridges? I always say this because it's not something that can just be thrust on you because you desire it. So for me, I think that Aura should have also given us his own explanation of why it fell and why it is not needed now.
Well, I guess for him, he says that the rotational presidency, as we've done it now, doesn't seem to have helped the nation. We're still where we are. It doesn't seem as if we've moved forward. So what is best is that next time we're going into polls, we should just look for the most competent and not use region as a means to throw up a candidate.
Good.
Or why that candidate ought to be voted in, just based on the fact that it's that region's turn.
I am thinking along that line. But what I'm saying, what is going to change in the next time? It's just election. Whether we do election or we don't do election, as people say it's election and all that, but people will file out to vote.
Okay.
Whether they're selecting or they're voting. Right?
All right, Emmanuel, we've got your thoughts there. Well, we also have in the studio Fine Face in a minute. Fine Face is an environmentalist and environmentalist and justice activist and executive director, Youth and Environmental Advocacy Center. Good to have you here with us, Fine Face in a minute.
Thank you, Annie. Good morning, Rivers people.
All right, and we also have joining us Lord Asher Frank. He's the monarch publisher of the Bridge Organization Global. Well, you have to put global there because we have been looking for you everywhere. So I think you've been doing global things. You've been doing global things, Lord Asher Frank. And that's why we've been unable to reach you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. I apologize to all the many people that have tried to reach me.
They have worried and bugged Emmanuel Undukwe and I so terribly that at one point we felt, good, let's hire those guys from South Africa. They'll go hunting.
So I'm back.
Good to have you here in the studio.
It's my pleasure.
So, Fine Face, let me get to you with this here. Mama Daura says, look, we've done turn by turn. It's not working. In fact, he believes in 2023 we should just zone in on competency. We should stop looking for where the person is from. Is he competent? Then put your vote there.
It's a good statement to hear from someone that we can see from the perspective of a nationalist. But Mamandara has not been seen as a nationalist ever since. It's kind of someone I can describe as an ethnic jingoist. And he's been playing that ethnic politics for a very long time. And he's been one of the kitchen cabinets of Mr. President. And it comes from his own state too. And all those things put together, what he said is a good thing. But what I think we are doing here is that I would like to take the message he has sent out, not minding the person the message is coming from, because that is how we need to move this country forward. How come that we have close to 200 million people like we are made to know by the Population Census Commission, and we cannot select one person to lead us? It's unfortunate. Just like we have a football team. I'm not a fan of football, but I know quite well that the selection process of those 11 or 22 players, or what they call them, had also been faulty in this country. So for us to move to the next level, we should pick a competent Nigerian. We can zone any other position, but the position of the president should not be zoned in a country like Nigeria, so that we have the best hands to lead us.
All right, okay. Lord Asher Frank, what do you think here?
Thank you very much. You see, fantastic statement there coming from a very serious-minded person. Serious-minded because he has managed himself over time properly. The concept of zoning, like every other concept within the Nigerian state, has been perverted, misinterpreted, abused, and misused. You see, the context of zonalism in politics must go hand in hand with competence. If I want, for instance, to become a council chairman within my local government area, and I want the thing to come to my place, what I am supposed to do as a politician is to position myself as somebody who is competent to do the job. When it now gets to the point where the leadership of the party, since you don't have individual candidates in Nigeria, when the leadership of the party sits, they will be considering that, okay, if this thing has to go to so and so place, he has to go there because that person there has positioned himself properly as somebody who can get the job done. What we are doing here is that we just throw up the ethnic card and think that anybody can do the job. The fact that you have a degree does not necessarily mean that you can govern people. We didn't know how so many people came out of the universities. You see, sometimes people overemphasize certificates. People just feel that because somebody have gotten a certificate, he can just occupy any position. It's not true. That you have an MS, a BA in business, they give you a small business to manage, you can just flop the whole place. It does not necessarily pan out. It does not. Mama Daura is saying it as it ought to be. If you are a Rivers man and you want to be a governor, you don't necessarily come out and tell people it should be the chance of my ethnic group. Who cares? Who cares? If you think you are competent to become a governor, I expect you to be playing the politics that you ought to play. Position yourself for people to see you as somebody who is competent to do the job.
Right.
When it gets to that point, people will just say, this thing should just go to this man, not minding the fact that it's an Iche man, it's an Ahoda man, or is anybody. So, competence first
Before zoning or
Before
anywhere.
zoning.
All right.
Yes, there must be zoning because the principles of federal character is very necessary in a society that is growing like ours.
All right.
But that zoning, if that zoning should not be people just clamoring, it should be our turn. It should be a matter of somebody stepping out of the crowd from that place, doing the right things, politically and otherwise, so that people cannot feel that you are competent enough to do the job.
Strategically placed for
Yes.
the job when the time
Then
comes.
of course, then you think can go there.
But you know what I'm thinking here is like Maman Daura said, we've done zoning once, twice, thrice, right? And he says it's not working. So can we do it the fourth time? After the fourth time, that we can decide not to go by zoning. I mean, I'm just thinking to be fair, because thrice is an odd number. So if we've had, that means twice it has gone to a particular side and once to one side. So that's what I'm just thinking.
What I seem to understand here
let's just make that even. Let's do it two par sides. They've had a shorter tit, and if we decide we're going to jettison that gentleman agreement that the politicians said they went into, and we can move on to looking for competency regardless where it comes from. It just seems as if at the moment where a certain region thinks, okay, it's coming to us now this time, and then we begin to throw up the idea of competency over zoning.
You see, there's something I want to say here. It's just like where I started. I said Nigerians have a way of manipulating words to suit their circumstances. There has never been any time since 1999 that anybody sat down anywhere and zoned anything to anybody. Let's get this point very clear. We know how Obasanjo came up to become president of Nigeria. He was not even involved in the formation of the party. We knew how he came up. He didn't come up because the founders of PDP sat down anywhere and said, we are zoning it to the southwest. No. It was serious politicking that took place at that time that threw up two Southwesterners as presidential aspirants, Obasanjo and Olufalaye. It was serious politicking that led into parties even coming into alliance. We saw what happened in the last election. Who zoned what? The last election was a South-South person versus a Northern person, and another person won. It was, if it was zoned particularly to a particular place, everybody would have brought people from there. So this concept of zoning, to me, is propagated by politicians who have nothing to offer. And so they feel that the only way they can go into office is to throw up their ethnic card. From 1999 to today, nobody have sat anywhere. We know the elections here in Rivers State, how the governors here came up. Was it zoned? If it was zoned, how come after all delay a particular ethnic group of Rivers State up to today? Who zoned it to them? It was politicking. So I am a politician and I want to become something that I don't care where I come from. I do the right things, I get the right job done, and when that time comes, it might look like it is zoned, but it was not. You see, there's a way you play politics and play it well. Things will look as if it's given to you, but it is not. You know you work for it. So if for instance, let me give a classical example. Let's say Igbo people want to be president in 2023. I expected politicians there to know that for you to become president in 2023, you must have started playing this game even before 1999. You must have been positioning people. You must be positioning yourself. You must be strategically aligning and realigning, because it's not a one-man business now. It's not a one-man game.
All right.
And when it gets to that point, it can just be you as a candidate, and everybody will just clap hand and say, this is not been zoned to so and so place. But you walk it out.
Let's leave Maman Daura and his zoning, and let's get to another story, though. This here says Maman Daura seeks competence over zoning. You find that story in This Day newspaper. Another in This Day newspaper, Buhari hails independent panel's affirmation of Adesina's innocence. It says here, President of the African Development Bank, Mr. Akinwumi Adesina, got his path through a second term of office smoothened yesterday as the independent panel instituted to review his clearance of alleged corrupt practices by the bank's ethics committee affirmed his innocence. The panel's report, which became public early yesterday morning, received an instant endorsement from President Muhammadu Buhari, who said it was an affirmation of the integrity of Nigeria's candidate for the headship of the Continental Development Agency. A petition by anonymous staff of the bank had earlier in the year accused Adesina of corrupt practices in a clear move to block his second term aspiration.
I expected President Buhari to be happy. You know, when it was mentioned here in the studio yesterday, we all were happy. He's a Nigerian. And at least once something has been subjected to verification, the end will either make you happy or sad. And so Adesina has, like I said, 2 hurdles now. And I think, did I hear, was he not a lone candidate?
Yeah.
Simple. So he should coast to victory, because nobody is even vying for that position. But the fact is that the path he was trading and was jaundiced by the accusation, it's now clear for him. If Americans don't want that, well, they pull out perhaps.
All right. Okay. What do you think?
Yes, I really have to congratulate Adesina over his clearance by the independent panel that reviewed that allegation that was leveled against him, because it was becoming a kind of dance on us, because we are a country where they see every Nigerian as a corrupt person. And a Nigerian heading that institution, some persons within the system would have looked at one or two things he did, not minding what the guidelines said and what he has done, and just petition, and they expect the public to believe. So I really thank thank those who have put together that panel, and I also congratulate every member of the panel have been able to painstakingly look into every document, crystallizing it with the actions he has taken to be sure that he never violated any law. And this is a kind of note of warning to people that work in institutions. There is always institutional internal mechanism for whistle blowing. But when you are blowing your whistle, be able to have facts to back up your whistle, so that don't waste people's time. The process of investigating all this now has not only dragged the continent back, but also everybody involved. So we must blow whistle with facts and not with just mere saying.
All right. Lord Ashrafan.
It's an interesting story. I follow this story very closely. And of course, for the first time, Nigeria said in an African financial institution. It should not be unexpected, because when you head such an institution, there must be eyes on you. So if Adesina was accused of fraudulent activity, as far as I'm concerned, it's normal, considering that kind of position he occupies. And if the institution itself is strong enough to be able to appropriately prove such allegation and prove him innocent, to me, it's excellent for that institution. I don't have any qualms at all in any person heading an international banking institution being accused of corruption. In today's world, what is important is that such institutions should be formidable enough to be able to close these windows and ensure that it can do proper probe, as they have done in this case. For Adesina himself, is kudos. I'm very grateful for that, and for him.
Okay, that story from this day newspaper. Let's get to another story. This here says, just a moment. Insecurity and identity politics. Insecurity and identity politics. It was written by Kayode Komolafe. And he says, in the midst of clear and present dangers nationwide, Nigerians, whilst ignoring their common perils, continue to produce and reproduce more and more normal stakeholders than dedicated caretakers of their sorely distressed fatherland or motherland. The administration of President Muhammadu Buhari faces two mutually reinforcing problems, among others. The two issues to which the government should pay greater attention are worsening insecurity and serious obstacles to national integration. These are really not fresh developments as such for the administration, you may say, but the dimensions of the crisis of the Nigerian state have taken in recent times should compel an urgent rethink of things. This is necessary if the administration is to avoid being defined ultimately by these problems. All that Buhari and his advisors need to do is to learn simple lessons of history. In the last 60 years of independent Nigeria, successive administrations have been irretrievably defined by certain developments. The president should therefore studiously prevent this era being defined by insecurity and polarization of the nation. It is not too late for the president to reboot the dynamic of his administration. Buhari should be conscious of his place in history. The urgency of the matter is perhaps demonstrated by the statements by the crucial apparatuses of the Nigerian state in the last 48 hours. On Monday, the state security services warned groups and personalities against destabilization of the country by pitching nationalities and groups against another. According to the SSS, the state would not permit planners of mayhem from carrying out their plans. The agency restated its commitment to the internal security of the nation while asking those with useful information on those allegedly instigating violence to make them available to the state. It was essentially a reassurance. It was essentially a reassurance to the public that the state is firmly in charge. Barely 24 hours later, the defense headquarters reminded members of the Air Force, no, it's the Armed Forces, I think it was Armed Forces we read yesterday, reminded members of the public and the Armed Forces that all officers and men of the Nigerian military swore to an oath of allegiance to be totally loyal to the civil authority of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and protect the Constitution. According to the military authorities, the implication of the oath is unalloyed loyalty to the President, Commander-in-Chief, and full subordination to the civil authorities of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. In fact, the defense headquarters were referring to a newspaper report with the following caption: Nigeria needs the Rawlings now. NDP. The national chairman of National Democratic Party, Chidi Chukwuanyi, reportedly said the state of corruption in the country calls for the replication of the Ghanaian experience under former President Jerry Rawlings in Nigeria. Now, the Rawlings metaphor should be situated in its proper historical context. In 1979, a lanky flight lieutenant, Jerry John Rawlings, appeared on the political firmament of Ghana after the botched coup of May 15 that year. Rawlings and his collaborators were arrested and sentenced to death. They were to be executed by firing squads. During the trial, Rawlings made a speech against injustice and corruption, which galvanized public support for the cause of the rebels. 5 weeks later, he escaped from custody to lead the June 4th coup. As part of his house cleaning exercise, the three former heads of state and 8 other officers were executed by the Rawlings Armed Forces. Now, for the writer, that the fact that the SSS came up with something like this 48 hours and said there's some surreptitious moves by certain elements to throw up nationalities against each other or communities against each other, and then you have the armed force, the defense headquarters, who also comes in and say, look, we hear whisperings, just know that we will not take a Rawlings treatment here. We are committed to the civil force here, and we have an unalloyed support to our commander-in-chief, who is the president. The writer is saying, look, for this to be coming out, at this time, obviously Nigeria is at the brink at something, and the president must rise up to the occasion to ensure that his administration is not dogged by the possible eventualities that we hear now, because every administration is colored by something, and the Buhari administration must make sure that House is not colored by insecurity, divisions, and unfortunately war.
Yesterday, when we were discussing about is this Kaduna or so issues, I said that the president will have his name written in gold if he is able, as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, to rewrite the narrative of this insecurity and all the rest of them and bring them to order. If order prevails in this country, naturally his administration will be remembered, and he is the person carrying the administration, as it were. Now, yesterday again, this particular issue, the armed forces said they don't want Rawlings' approach. Nobody will be happy. Of course, at the end then was that senior officers were killed of the armed forces of Ghana. But I said yesterday, I do not know why they are jolted about this particular statement. Because see, the Rawlings' approach, the way I understand it, that guy is using, is just a metaphor. He's not saying that, at least in his capacity as a civilian, that he has found this and that, but he's just seeing the reality on ground in terms of insecurity, corruption, and all the rest of them. But the DSS and the military have their eyes on all these things that could snowball into insurrection. Now, if these individuals keep on doing their jobs and they find out that there are deviations from the normal way of doing things, which could indeed plunge the nation into a devastation, they have every right to pick the individuals. To pick them is not, you don't even notify. Look at what we've been following you and this and that, and we've come up with it. That will be in the drilling session with that particular individual. But right now, somebody is writing in his own suggestion, he feels that this thing is growing higher and higher, the corruption, and that perhaps the only method is the Rawlings approach. Where are you jolted? So for me, I think it's just like any other person is stating whatever opinions he has. The military, the DSS, all the security wings of this nation should do their job and keep being at it. Should there be any symptom or any sign of rebellion or whatever, let them pick the people.
All right then. Manuel, got your thoughts there. 5 first in a minute.
Yeah, the writer has put together his opinion on this, and I think it's an option that those who buy into that idea can sell or propagate or kind of escalate and let the president, whoever is involved, get to know. But the point here remains that we cannot, in my own opinion, we cannot use the Rawlings approach in the fight against corruption in this country. I know quite well that a lot of people who have held sway in this country are corrupt. But I think there are other civilized ways we can go about, getting these funds back to the government, and then those who have violated some of these, laws by illegally embezzling these funds, get to stand for their crimes. I think if we strengthen our judicial institutions, we strengthen our anti-corruption agencies, we strengthen our law enforcement processes, and let our judicial institutions to be very, very strong by way of, if possible, set up some, special courts that will try corrupt cases and dispose of them in not more than 12 months, which is a year. We can get some of these issues trashed out. A situation whereby you accuse somebody or suspect somebody to have stolen public funds, and you don't give the person opportunity to defend his or herself, and you just go about using the Rawlings approach to terminate their lives and to kill them. It will amount to the violation of the rights of those people, to their, self-defense, and being able to have a say in what they are accused of. So with that each area of right violation is where I'm not comfortable with. You can't just take the life of somebody you never gave. So I think the judiciary should be strengthened with special courts that will try corrupt cases in Nigeria and dispose of within 1 year. And more prisons can be built, and then they are there for the rest of their lives.
All right, then, got your thoughts on that. And to Lord Asher Frank.
All the while that I have been off, I have diligently listened to a lot of analysts in so many platforms. And I see a lot of shouting, a lot of screams. And sometimes I sit and I begin to think whether, was I really in this country?
Yes.
And I know I've been in this country for a while. And I know this country very well. And I'm very shocked at the level of screams. The only thing that does not daze me is because it is expected. Because in Nigeria, it has gotten to a point where nobody expects anybody in position of authority to stamp his feet down and say, this cannot be done here. Nigerians have seen political positions as positions of patronage. Nigerians feel their country is so rich. So if your brother is a councillor, a chairman, a governor, in fact, you just dish the funds, you have a commissioner in your family, in fact, the poverty should be wiped out. They have already seen that. So I am looking at most of the screams coming from there. What do the security agencies do? What is their job really? Insecurity is from where? Nigerians and their collaborators whom they brought to create insecurity is a deliberate attempt. The armed robber that goes to somebody's house to go and steal, he was not just passing by. He planned it before he went there. So the concept of insecurity in the first instance is a destabilizing factor to a government. Properly planned and executed. By who? By who? And you had a government that came in, and insecurity was from the desert to the Atlantic Ocean. And today, people are walking around here. We are only talking of insecurity now within the context of banditry in some areas of the country. And in those areas of the country, we know there is transborder insurrection ongoing. So, which magic did any person wanted anybody to have done? I don't understand. Should an J. Michael would have become president and he would just over the night catch everybody inside the bush and put all of them in prison? The point is that the civil society itself, it is their children, their brothers, their sisters, their girlfriends, their wives that are causing the insecurity. And are they not aware? And how do you even fight insecurity? As a general who have seen war, the president as commander-in-chief of the armed forces know that you don't fight war. It's not one individual that fights war. It's not a service chief that fights a war. War is institutionalized. It is the military as an institution that fights wars. And there are so many parameters that must be in place within the institution before they can prosecute war. And if the president has found out that these institutional issues can be addressed by this set of people who are loyal to me and are working with me and listening to me, why did you? In fact, prosecuting war is like wine and women. The older, the better. When in overseas, the people that plan wars are field marshals who have all their hairs grey. They plan the wars. It's not small boys who plan wars. They only go to execute. So, As far as I'm concerned, I have been in this country for a while, and I know that this security today, the way they are screaming it, is not correct. It's wrong. It's a lie. It's fallacious.
Okay. But
And the more you see, the more there is a deafening noise over situations that are over bloated. Then there's an intention. And that is the work the security agencies do, to find out that intention.
Okay, let's move on. We'll leave that argument for another time. We have here no sacred cow in anti-graft war. Federal government insists. No sacred cow in anti-graft war. Federal government insists. Despite a rash of probes of top government officials for alleged corruption in recent times, the anti-graft agenda of President Muhammadu Buhari's led administration is not flagging. The federal government has said it warned critics of the anti-corruption war not to test the resolve of the Buhari administration to curb graft, adding that neither members of the ruling All Progressive Congress or top government officials will be treated as sacred cows. Minister of Information and Culture Alhaji Lai Mohammed, while giving an update on the anti-corruption war, a cardinal program of the Buhari administration at the press conference yesterday in Abuja, also said the administration had recorded over 1,400 convictions, including high-profile ones, and has recovered funds in excess of 800 billion naira outside the forfeiture of allegedly ill-gotten assets. According to him, unlike other previous administrations of the PDP, the Buhari administration will not cover up for anyone, including members of the ruling APC.
I think I agree with Lai Mohammed. Oftentimes, people will tell you that come to APC, your sins are forgiven. Myself, that is not a member of APC, but I've been following the activities very well. Ojus Okalo. Now, what's his name? It's expected that Malami, try them. Good as that move may be, and then, of course, not agreeing with what people said, you have your sin in abundance, but come to APC, it will be forgiven. Even though they mentioned somebody who said that, he may be entitled to his opinion. But I'm seeing the reality, and I work with that reality. That look at all these people high in the administration are there, but they've been brought to be probed. I think the best thing anybody should be focusing is that what finally came out of that. Nobody should think that the administration will force out a result and pour on anybody so as to have him convicted and jailed so that you clap hand for them. But the issue is that in the verification exercise, how far did you go? Does it warrant jailing and all that? If it happens that way, then I will agree truly in totality with Lai Mohammed that the administration is different. For now, I'm just watching to see exactly how some of these investigations will pan out.
All right. And fine, first in a minute.
Yeah, I don't expect to hear less from Lai Mohammed because he is currently holding sway in the current administration. But be that as it may, we believe that the way anti-corruption works in Nigeria is that if one government leaves office, the other one comes. You will see the new government being active in the prosecution of those who were in the previous government or have been corrupt. For the 16 years that the PDP held sway in Nigeria, nobody in that government could really see that there was a lot of corruption amongst them until we have the APC. So, in as much as we are concerned, we believe that if one way or the other, the APC could not make it in 2023 to return to presidency and the PDP comes in or any other party comes in, then you will see, when you begin to see the fights of the people who were in this administration that is fighting corruption head on, and there's no sacred cow being opened. So we have all those issues on ground. But one would think that the anti-corruption agency will work